Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Bobby Sapphire and my hetero life mate, Honestly Sarcastic. You on the left? Oh, shit. Uh, New cards, new Runeterra cards. We had a podcast before, but it kind of like went to funk. But now that there's a new set out, now that Runeterra is back, it's going wide release. It's going to be on tablets. It's going to be on phones. We are hyped to be playing. You're looking at two former top 9 North America players.
I got the three.
You get the 3. I got the 9. Let's go. Um, and I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know if like I didn't love the tournaments, but I do love the mythic grind or whatever the master grind. And I'm sort of looking forward to like Valorant just dropped. They have like a level above master, so I'm hoping that Runeterra might get that at some point, which would be so tight. Um,
Grandmaster.
Sorry, what'd you say?
The Grandmaster.
Grandmaster. We're going to be doing a couple videos at least. Today we're going to talk about Bilgewater, which is the new region. It's got 4 new champs. Does it 4 champs or 5?
I'd assume it's five to even out with the others because the others had four.
Yeah, and there's 11 new, so there's got to be 5. And we're going to just go through and talk about the cards that we like, and we're going to do row by row on Mobalytics. If you haven't checked out lor.mobalytics.gg, you should definitely check it out. They have all the spoiled cards which came out today. Anything you want to say before we get started?
No, I'm excited to see this new stuff. There's a lot of kind of crazy things going on. As far as like where they would kind of fit with the other regions, who they're gonna combo with. But definitely a lot of crazy interesting things, especially because of the keywords that just. We'll go over the keywords as we pop into them through the cards and give a rough breakdown, and we'll explain the cards full and everything, even though anybody watching it can see it. So any of pop up on the audio can know what we're talking about.
Sweet. So we're looking at the first 2 rows of cards, and we'll talk about blue card and red card and gold card when we get to Twisted Fate. But right now, what's jumping out at you at this first 2 rows of cards? To me, the only ones that are like kind of worth mentioning are the 1-drop toss cards, which seem like a pretty good rate because you want to get your deck down to 15 cards, right? That's when you go deep.
Hmm.
And Dreg Dredgers is a 1-cost 2/1, which is already like a decent stat, and it tosses 3. And then Jettison is a 1-cost burst spell that tosses 4. So you need to toss 25 cards from your deck to have yourself go deep. And you start with
30, 35 in.
yeah, you start with 35. So like just playing, playing one of
Oh
each
yeah,
gets
four draw
you
one.
about halfway there. So yeah, I think like if deep is a thing that really works, and we'll talk about some of the deep is when you have only 15 cards left in your deck, and some cards trigger off being deep, and then there's a champ who wants you to toss cards. I think those are good rate 1-drops.
So yeah, as a heads up, toss. What it does is it obliterates cards or non-champion cards from the bottom of your deck. So Dredgers is a one cost 2/1. When I'm summoned, toss 3. So he'll pretty much RFG exile depending on what game you play from. He's gonna obliterate the bottom 3 cards of your deck that are not champions. Um,
Right, and so
he
that's a
also gets
self mill deck that wants to eliminate cards.
Yep. And then deep is when you have 15 cards or less, the unit will get +3/+3 as well as whatever other deep effect if it has one.
Right. So I really like that rate, even if you don't draw it at the beginning of the game. Like obviously, Dredgers is fine on 1, but even late game, if you have your deep cards or you have your deep cards in play, or you want to start triggering deep, anytime you're tossing 3 cards off the bottom of your deck is going to be a pretty solid rate for 1 mana.
Hmm. I think I like Fizz from the perspective of a regular dude, but I'm concerned about him being a champion slot. Primarily because if you think of what we currently have for champions, we have what Timo. Timo's a one cost 1/1 elusive. He puts 5 puff caps in the deck in the opponent's deck, and like he gets the flip, and then he's a 2/2 and like doubles those. He's really scary, but it feels like everyone and their mom has an answer for him. Like very seldom do you see him live past what 2 if you play him on one.
Yeah, so well, the good thing about Fizz is when you cast a spell, it gets him elusive and it stops all enemy spells and skills from targeting him. So he has like pseudo hexproof. So all you have to do, and he levels up when you've cast 6 spells this game. And we'll take a look at his level up in a second. But basically, if as long as you have a spell up, like playing him on one is always going to be a risky proposition because you can't protect him. But as soon as you get spell mana, or even like go to the next turn, or play him with mana up, you are going to be able to protect him simply by casting any spell. And you're going to want to be doing that anyway because you want to give him elusive. The only trick will be if you want to give him elusive and you don't have a burst spell, an opponent could respond. But if you do have burst spells, like he's basically protected being elusive and untargetable.
Yeah.
I guess he's not untargetable. It's only when you respond, right? Stop all enemy spells and skills targeting me. It's only in that present state.
Correct. So when you cast it and essentially put the other spell on the stack, it'll fizzle off the other ones. So
right. So he does protect himself, but you can't be proactive about it essentially, unless you have two spells.
correct. So like that's the issue. And then if you want to attack with him having elusive because they have a guy on the ground, like that's the problem. You'd have to play a spell that was not a loss of value to get the elusive to swing. And then if they try to kill him, you have to have another spell on the back end. But what if you're trying to actually put more dudes on the table? It kind of causes like a whole issue where he probably is just on the ground, and if someone like tries to knock him out, then you're protecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my concern for Fizz is. Like he's not going to be a crazy elusive guy that bashes in every round.
He's definitely not going to be a crazy elusive guy that bashes in every round, and he might even be one of those champs that you only play. Actually, it's when he sees you cast 6 spells. No, when you just cast 6 spells this game. So if you cast 6 spells, he levels up, and if you take a look at his level up, it's a 1-cost 3/2. Same ability. If you cast a spell, give him elusive and stop all enemy spells that target him. But when he Nexus strikes, he creates a Chum of the Waters, and Chum of the Waters is one of the best value cards in the set. It's a 4-cost slow spell, but it gives an enemy vulnerable, and it creates a long tooth. And a long tooth is a 5/1 overwhelm, which you can either choose to kill the guy you just gave vulnerable to, or obviously just attack in, especially if you have other units. And then Fizz's spell is pretty solid. Remove an attacking ally from combat to rally. Shuffle a Fizz into your deck. And so if you have another, if you're removing Fizz, you get the attack back, and you can replay him if things go wrong. So your point is valid. He's not someone that's, he's very killable, but there are a lot of ways to protect him.
Definitely. It's just like depending on what we see, because he doesn't protect himself from the non-targeted damage spells. So we'll start seeing champions at some point that like deal 1 damage to every guy that is battling and stuff like that. And like sure, for those ones it requires him to block, but anything like a Withering Whale, he can't protect versus that. Like so, it's just, there's just minor concerns all over the place. But I think the overall way that he was created is really interesting, especially if you make him big. You standalone Fizz, oh man, that's gonna be disgusting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you can buff him, he's gonna be good. On his own, I think he needs a lot of help. But I also think there are a lot of ways to help him. So it's whether or not a deck with him getting a lot of help will work. I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah, indeed.
Anything else you want to talk about from these first 2 rows?
No, I think we're
They're 1-drops. There's not a lot. There's not a lot going on. Like even Jagged Butcher, who's a 1/1 who can get +1/+1, he can never get it on 1, and then he's still just like a 1-cost 3/3, which gets outclassed pretty quickly.
it does get outclassed, but I actually do like him better. Only because so on 1, if you play him, he's a 2/2, which is a Cythria, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then later in the game, you're not stuck with just a 2/2. If you did hit them with anything that dealt damage, you at least got a 3/3 out of it. And a 1-cost 3/3 is relatively large by comparison.
Yeah, it's not a bad rate. I just think 4 is like a really key number in this game that people focus around.
It is, but we're talking about a 1-drop. So like
Yeah, but if it's mid-game, that 3/3 isn't helping a ton. It's not bad. I'm not saying I dislike it. Overall, I don't know. I don't know what deck that fits in. I don't know if there's an aggro deck that really wants a 1-drop 3/3 that's blank.
it'd be better than so I guess my thing is the comparison, right? We're looking at like 1-drop 3/2s that can't block. We're looking at 1-drop 2/2 that has no ability. 1-drop 2/1s with an ability. Like the fact that he can get to 3/3 is just it's a much bigger power creep than what we had.
Yeah, and I guess like it's fairly interesting with that guy who pulls 2 1/1s.
Yeah. Kinko Wayfinder.
Yeah.
So like you could have like smashed in, and then it's like okay, and then you're like boom, here's
Now I
two
have
three
two
threes, and
three
it's like
threes,
oh
right?
god.
Yeah, that's interesting. And there's also the guy that buffs one drop guys, so like all of a sudden it could be a 5/5.
5/5.
Yeah. So there are ways to do it. There might be the one drop weenie deck might be coming.
Definitely could.
All right, let's take a look at the next 10 cards.
Hold on, but the most
Okay.
important one is Plunder Poro.
I asked if you wanted to talk about these. Go ahead, talk about Plunder Poro.
Well, because I couldn't see them. I couldn't see the first five.
Oh, I'm doing 10
Plunder
at a
Poro.
time. 10 at a time.
Oh, didn't know that. So Plunder Poro is a one cost 1/1. Um, Plunder grant me two random keywords. So he fits the I'm terrible Poro concept with all the rest of them, but he can get two keywords. So Fluffed of Poros can get super crazy.
Mm-hmm. They could be
Real
anything.
even a boat.
Even a boat. Let's go.
Booyah, Bilgewater.
Bilgewater boat life.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of most of the other stuff. The deal one to anything, if it kills it, deal one to the enemy is, realistically fine. It's like a slow Blade's Edge is a little rough though. No combat tricks.
Yeah, I say we just skip over all those because we have so many cards to cover and we're already
Yep,
12 minutes
that's
in.
fine.
All right, so looking at the next 10 cards, there aren't a ton that I love. So we should talk about Attune though, because we see our first two Attune creatures. And Attune is a new keyword that says when you play it, you get one spell mana added. Um, like if you look at Shell Shocker as a one cost Attune, it's a 2/1, and you get that mana back as spell mana. And then the 2-drop 1/2 when you summon, create a one cost random one cost spell in hand. So even if you're tapped out on 2, he'll create 1 mana and you get a spell that you could potentially play.
Yep. The Shell Shockers is a eager with cheap.
Yeah, but cheap. Yeah, toned down version. One card I really like in this stack is the Black Market Merchant. When you draw an enemy card, reduce the cost by 1, and plunder, draw 1 card from the enemy deck. And I don't love him just on his own, but if you're playing any of the other cards that draw enemy cards, having that reduce its cost by 1 is really, really good. And because of that utility, he's a very cheap drop mid game, where if you strike the Nexus, all of a sudden, you play this 2 card, it replaces itself and it's cheaper. So you get a little value there.
Yep. And if you need to drop them early in Jam versus when you're like a control deck or something, it's definitely a viable option.
Yeah, exactly. If they play a Chempunk pickpocket and you really need to block it, boom, he's there for you. But when you can get it late game and steal a card, and obviously there are some high value plays, because it doesn't say non-champion card. It's
Correct.
just draw 1 card from the enemy deck. So you have the potential to, steal that Garen, steal that Lee Sin, steal that Thresh, steal that Tryndamere.
What I wonder though is like, did they write draw on it because it's actually gonna physically draw it from the opponent's deck? Because like, if you remember, we used to run Kempa Pickpocket all of the time. It made a copy of it. It never got to actually steal it. So like, would we be removing this card from the opponent's deck?
That's the way it reads to me. That's why I think that this ability is so strong.
Yeah, me as well. Like removing cards and knowing they're short on that stuff is kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we missed the saying the text and whatnot. But Black Market Merchant is a 2-cost 2/2. When you draw an enemy card, reduces cost by 1. Plunder, draw 1 from the enemy deck. And then Shell Shocker was a 1-cost 2/1 with a 2.
Yeah, I think
But
we said some of those, but it's all good.
just in case, trying
I
to cover
know the
bases.
audio people.
Most of the others, I'm a fan of.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of any of the stuff.
I think Eve been warned is okay.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. It's slow, which is a little annoying, but there are going to be plenty of times when, who cares? You're giving a guy vulnerable, and if you're killing it, you're drawing a card, and so it replaces itself, probably with something better, hopefully with something better. I think it's totally fine. I'm not sure what deck you fit it in right now, but it's a very reasonable way to kill a guy.
Yeah. Well, we're also getting later where we'll see the other elusives in the deck. So if you're trying to just get a pull an elusive out of the way, it lets you kind of pull those key targets out to smash them, and then like filter through the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I guess we could talk about Dreadway deckhand just because we need to talk about powder kegs at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So powder keg is kind of weird. It's an immobile card with vulnerable, and they stack. So all your spells and skills deal one extra damage and destroy me when your spell or skill damages enemies. So these stack, so you can have it deal like you can have the next spell deal 5. The only thing is your opponents can attack it, and you can't attack with it or defend it in any way. So it's just like I guess it's like a damage buff to your spells that stay on table and can be killed.
Yeah, it's a really weird funsmith.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it.
But just think, man, if you play Static Shock, you're like 2/2, draw a
Yeah,
card.
that's true. You're dealing too. I mean, it's definitely got some cool applications. It just remains to be seen whether or not it'll be pushed enough that you can abuse it, or if they kind of kept it in check.
I think once we get to, oh my god, the pirate with the barrels, I can't remember his name, Gangplank.
Hmm.
Once we see Gangplank, then it'll make much more sense because that's kind of like disgusting. Or even if you think of it with Make It Rain, which is the card we're seeing right now, which is deal 1 to 3 different random enemies. Like that's very close to being um, the equivalent to like a Withering Wail. How often is the opponent going to have like 5 or 6 guys?
Hmm.
In theory, though, the Nexus is an available option. But if they only have 2 guys and you play Make It Rain, you're hitting both of those guys and the Nexus. So for a 2 cost, mini 1 damage to each, like that's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, and I mean and if you even look at like more powder on the right, like you're getting 2 powder cakes for 2. So if you have 4 mana, all of a sudden you're doing 3 mana to 3 different. I mean 3 damage to 3 different targets with Make It Rain. So there's definitely some interesting stackable stuff here.
Yeah,
You just
I
don't
just
know if playing those cards just to make powder kegs will be worth it.
yeah that's a tough one. Like I don't think I'd mind playing Dreadway Deckhand for 2 cost 2/2 when I'm summon a Powder Keg because then you have some access like going to the next round. You can like play the pump, assuming this is you played it on your two, or played it post their attack. Then you have some leeway there to set up bigger damage spells,
Yeah, for the
especially
following
ones that hit
turn.
multiple targets.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's push down to the next uh, 10 cards, starting with Pilfered Goods, which we haven't talked about Plunder yet, so this would be a good opportunity to talk about Plunder. Plunder is if the enemy Nexus has been dealt damage, Plunder abilities trigger when they're played. So if you have damaged someone earlier in the turn and you play Pilfered Goods, you get to draw a second card from the enemy deck instead of just one. And this is the card that goes really well with the Black Market Merchant that I mentioned that we talked about earlier when we're drawing enemy
Hmm.
cards. So, I guess we should have already talked about Plunder. Maybe we did. Um, but with this lets you draw 2 cards from the enemy deck if you've hit their Nexus. Which again, we're stealing cards from their deck for 2 mana. We're gaining a card. Um, just really, it seems really really solid in an aggro deck, to be honest. Like if you know you're gonna hit if you have if you're like a Noxus damage aggro deck and you're playing plunder cards because you have the 2/1 that does a damage to the Nexus, or Boom Crew Rookie who does 2 damage when he attacks. One of the things that those decks have real trouble with is refilling their hand, and this is a card that can do that.
Well, the only issue with that is Boom Crew's Piltover and Zon.
Oh right, that is yeah yeah yeah. But I guess sure, but there are ways to get plunder off, is what I'm saying, in an aggro
Yeah,
deck.
yeah. The salesman
Mm-hmm.
makes the caustics. So you can jam those in. They crack, do that stuff.
Yep.
Lots of different ways to do it. Bubble Bear I think is really interesting as just like a fat wall. 3 cost 0/6 has a tune and an elusive.
Yeah, so you can block a lot of the elusives that are out there giving people problems.
Yep. And imagine if you do like a standalone. It's just
Yeah.
like here's a 3/9 elusive. It's like okay.
Yep. Any of the things that pump him so he can get in elusive while not very difficult to kill him is going to be tough.
Yeah. People are like, where's my purify at? Where's my purify?
I like Golden Narwhal a little bit too as an elusive counter. Not only is it elusive itself, but it has vulnerable, right? It
It has
doesn't. Yeah, it
vulnerable.
has
Yeah.
vulnerable. Um, yeah, never mind. I was thinking that he gives vulnerable for some reason.
Unfortunately, not.
Yeah.
Narwhal's a 3 drop 2/4 elusive vulnerable. I do like Jagged Taskmaster quite a bit. It's gonna be kind of like frustrating when an opponent draws it. 3 drop 4/3 plunder. Oh no, never mind. Wrong guy. Plunder grant grant 1 cost allies everywhere +1/0. This is the Poro guy. Make my pearls grow.
Yeah. So I like Jowl Hunters. 4/1 challenger for 3, and when I'm summoned, create a random sea monster in hand. And the sea monsters are all pretty good. So he's generally, for 3 mana, killing something with 4 defense, which we have taught, like we mentioned briefly earlier, but 4 toughness is like a really key stat to be able to get something to 4. So it's going to kill something and replace itself, which I really like.
I do too. The only primary issue is like what? That's more of a control type card because the sea monsters are large.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably won't see that too much in kind of like regular decks, but it is nice if an opponent had to like burn down smaller guys already and you got to like pull a guy with this.
Yeah, I mean it kills elusives, it kills important guys, and it gives you like he has a built-in mid to late game because the sea monsters are so big that
Hmm.
as long I mean you might not be playing a rush deck, but even if you're just playing something mid range, he just auto gives you big creatures for the end of the game, which I think is like a really sweet utility.
If I'm not mistaken, though, when it says random like that, I can't remember if it's from the same classes or not. I think it's from the same regions that you're playing.
Are there sea monsters from other regions?
I believe there were sea monsters, like maybe one of in each other region. Because the Terror of Tides is from Shadow Isles.
Okay, yeah, just like scanning through the thing, the first sea monster in Bilge pops up at 4, and then there's a 5, and then there's a 6, and then there's a 7. Demacia doesn't have any. Frege, Noxus, PZ. Shadow Isles is the only one with a sea monster that costs 8.
Okay.
Either way, you're getting a 4 through 8 drop, which for a 3 drop is great.
Indeed.
All right, let's talk about Misfortune, our next champ.
Yep. When 3 cost 3/3, when allies attack, deal 1 to battling enemies and the enemy nexus.
Right, so
Level
she's
up when
built.
I've seen you attack 4 times.
Yeah, so she has to be on table, but she doesn't have to attack.
Correct.
Are you? Do you have headphones on? Because I'm getting a lot of like echo from you.
No, no headphones on.
Yikes. Okay. I just hear myself, but it's no big deal. I'll just stop yelling. All right, so she doesn't have to attack to do those 4 attacks. Um, she. When did these 0 cost abilities kick in? Do you know?
um, the skills you're talking about?
Yeah.
So that should be you declare attack. They go on the stack like Boom Kuruvi and whatnot.
It's just not also on her card. Oh, that's just what it's called. Okay. Deal 1 to battling enemies and the enemy nexus. So,
Yep.
okay. And then her upgrade, her level up is she's a 3 cost 4/4. Overwhelm. When allies attack, deal 1 3 times to battling enemies and the enemy nexus. So that, bullet time and love tap are just what her abilities are called. And then
Correct.
her spell is Make It Rain, which we talked about earlier. Deal 1 to 3 different random enemies, and then shuffle a Misfortune into your deck. So I like her quite a bit, especially if because of the especially when she's flipped, when you have the overwhelm going. If you're able to kill guys with her abilities in combat, like even if they block her, that damage goes through, which I think makes her pretty strong. But she's definitely a little vulnerable when she's unflipped, and she flips
Yeah.
slowly.
Agreed. I don't know. I'm kind of used to at this point having like a lot of the 3 drop 3/3s have like a challenger or a quick attack or some keyword ability. So it's interesting for her to not have one. But attacking and dealing 1 to battling enemies is just a really good ability in general. So it's very interesting. She sets up the plunder very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she auto hits the Nexus, so as long as you have ways to protect her, she's going to be pretty strong.
Hmm. All right. So after that, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of most of the rest of these.
Yeah,
Like we
same.
have some ways to generate powder kegs and stuff like that.
Nothing I think like worth mentioning big time.
Agreed.
I think we should move on to the next 10 because pick a card is pretty interesting.
Okay. So, pick a card as a 3 cost burst event. Shuffle a card from your hand into your deck to draw 3 fleeting at next round start.
Yeah, so you don't get the benefits till next round, but Twisted Fate wants to see you drawing cards. So much so that even if you can't play them, there's there's advantage. But when you can play them, things start to get pretty dirty. And I guess like we'll just have to bookmark. Yeah, we'll have to bookmark this to talk about Twist of Fate. He's showing up in a second. So maybe save that for last. So we already talked about Chum the Waters. Um, I think Island Navigator is sweet. It's a little overcosted and understated for, but that's the trade-off of Scout. There just aren't a lot of Scout guys. But you get a random one-cost unit from any faction, and you get it, and you get to give it Scout. So you do have. I just think Scout is a super awesome ability, and I can't wait to try it.
Yep. So anyone that hadn't seen the Quinn reveal, Scout is the first time you attack with only units that have Scout, you rally after.
Yeah.
It,
So technically, it's not rally, but it's the same effect as rally. I don't know if there's a reason why they didn't call it rally, but they say you refresh your attack token.
I wonder if it doesn't work on the opponent's turn then. So if I had rally and I rallied and then scouted, maybe I don't get it because we didn't have the attack token there.
Possibly. We'll have to science that out
I didn't. I
tomorrow.
didn't know. I had immediately said it rallied.
No, I know, and I think, and honestly, it might just be, it might get reworded, but I know specifically it's not rally, which I thought was weird.
Yeah. So it's probably just because you have the actual button that flips white when you used your attack and you're
But
the attacker on turn.
but if you rally, you get that coin, don't you?
No, you don't get the coin.
You just
You
get the
just get a
sword.
sword.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if Scout is specifically refresh it, then that would make sense where it would not work on the opponents. So like trying some rally tricks on the opponent's turn would be not good.
Hmm.
And
Um,
like that makes sense if they're trying to do it like from a defensive perspective. They just don't want you to go crazy.
yeah, I mean, we'll have to check it out. We'll just have to make a Lucian scout deck. See how it goes. All right, so Brash Gambler, I guess. Well, before, is there anything else in this that you want to talk about other than Brash Gambler or pick a card?
Hmm. I think Pocket Ace is interesting because it's a permanent +2/+1, 3 cost when drawn. Cost one less this round. Grant an ally +2/+1.
Yeah, and I
Return.
love. There's a whole run of spells that when drawn cost less this turn, and I love that.
Yeah.
I think this is still pricey for +2/+1, but it's definitely not bad.
It's tough because the it being permanent, right? So
Yeah.
if you do draw it and you rip, you just pay two for it. Two for two +2/+1 is actually just really good from the permanent perspective.
Hmm.
But it is indeed a bit rough.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just go ahead.
No, the only other card I like here, I think, is Playful Trickster. 4 cost fast, remove an attacking ally from combat to rally.
Yeah, I think this card's great. We talked about it briefly because it's Fizz's card, but I think
Hmm.
it's the global application of just being able to set up a rally is nuts.
Agreed. All right, go ahead and talk about your Brash Gambler.
Yeah, so I think like this and pick a card. Like when you look at all the cards that draw fleeting, um, like having this guy to play him, you have to discard two, which generally you would never do for a 4/5/4 drop. But because in this deck that we're gonna like try and piece together in our minds, when you're drawing three fleeting cards, you can discard two of them because you weren't going to play them anyway. I think something like this becomes a little bit better, and then when she attacks, she draws you two more fleeting cards. Um, so you're churning through your deck pretty quickly, but if we scroll down a bit and just look at Twisted Fate, he levels up when you draw 8+ cards. So you do want to draw these cards to get him leveled up because he goes from a 4 drop 2/2 to get there
3/3.
a 3/3, and the first three times I see you play a card each round, you play a Destiny card, and those are the 0 skill cards: the blue card, the red card, the gold card.
Mm,
So you end up playing three of them a turn. The red card is deal one to all enemies in the enemy nexus. The gold card is deal two and stun the strongest enemy, like allowing you to get in an attack. And then blue is refill one spell mana and draw one. So you can chain those together. And I
Um,
just think when you put all that together, there is probably a strong deck in here somewhere.
so I guess the question is, is he going to play the other two off of playing the first one? And if he did that, why wouldn't they just word it play three Destiny cards? So I want to say that you'd actually have to play multiple cards, and the Destiny cards are going to be random.
In League of Legends, you get to pick which card you're throwing.
No, in League of Legends, when you're doing the card, you have to do it timing wise. You like he has a flashing thing, so you actually have to get used to the timing for flipping through the cards to make sure you're on the correct one you wanted.
Yeah, fair enough. You do. I mean, sure. You have to be good at it, but you can basically pick whichever one you want.
Yeah, it's just that when you had to immediately jam it on somebody running at you, like it was rough.
Sure. Um, Maybe a Destiny card doesn't count as a card. I'm not sure, but the first three times I see you play a card each round, I play a Destiny card. So you play a
So
card, you play a Destiny card, you play a Destiny card, you play a Destiny card.
I want to say the designation is it's weird because it's him seeing you play a card and then he's playing the Destiny card.
There you go. So you do have to play three individual cards, and the first three times you do, he throws a card.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can
So
pick the cards, I think it's pretty nuts. Stun three guys? Yes, please. Oh, I guess you can't
draw
stun three
three,
guys because
refill three.
it just keeps stunning the same guy, right? So I guess you never want to do that.
Yeah, but draw three, refill three seems like it would be absolutely ridiculous. So like, I don't see a world where they let you pick.
Yeah. It would
That would
just
make
suck
him
to.
good enough to play though.
Yeah, for sure. His spell is pick a card, which we talked about earlier. Shuffle a card from hand into your deck to draw three fleeting at the next round start.
I really dislike that card so much.
It really just depends on how much the engine on him is going to be good.
Yeah, I guess.
If he's
Oh
if
man,
his deck is good, then that card is good. But you would never just like pack that card.
that's a fair one. You'd also probably have to just come in real cheap because you'd have to be just blown through cards. You can't go in with like you can't have like sixes and sevens and be like, oh look, I drew two of them or three of them. All my stuff's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So the rest of the cards from this 10 stack, there are. This is like a pretty spicy stack of 10 cards. We could spend a lot of time here. Um, there's two sea monsters. The 4 drop, the beast below, is just has deep. He's a 4/4. So if you only have 15 cards or less in your deck, he's a 7 drop. He's a 7/7 for 4.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other sea monster also is deep. It's elusive. It's a 5 drop 3/3. And when he strikes the Nexus, you draw a card. So both of those sea monsters pretty strong, even stronger late in the game when you're deep. Um,
Man, 6/6 elusive for five that draws cards if it hits.
yeah, gross,
Uh,
gross. So toss, toss is a thing. There's another burst card in here, 4 drop, toss two, draw two for 4. As a
yep.
burst spell, like that's not bad. That's one of those cards that like when you know you're going into the next round and you have mana to burn, like paying 4 to draw two and also mill two off the bottom of your deck is gonna be nice.
hmm I don't know. I'm a big fan of Zap Sprafen here. Zap Sprafen is a 4 cost 2/2. It has elusive and attune, so you're gonna get one spell mana back. When I'm summoned, draw a spell that costs three or less from your deck. And like in my world, I just always imagine Piltover and Zon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, get a thermal or a mystic shot or a get excited, and you're just like, this seems great.
Right, and that's something great that happens very rarely in card games when you can set up your deck to draw something very specific. There's even potentially a combo potential here. Like if there's some card that could win you the game if in the right scenario, it costs 3 or less, and it's the only spell that's 3 or less in your hand. You auto draw it when you play Zap. But just like the situation you just mentioned, knowing that you're going to draw one of your 9 burn removal spells is just dope to auto
Yeah,
draw that and get a spell mana back.
yeah. Especially too if you're playing any of the decks that. So like if you're, I don't know. I guess you could. Let's say you played him in an aggro deck. I don't know, some aggro, Bilgewater, Demacia, and like your only threes or less were like single combat and rally. You'd be like, oh look, I'm guaranteed one of these two. So
Mm-hmm.
you could like play the odds of doing that. So in my mind, this is going to be one of the most consistent cards, kind of the way Shadow Assassin was, because three drop 2/2 elusive, draw a card. This is 4 drop 2/2 elusive. You get your one spell mana back, but you're guaranteed to get one of your spells. And if you're just overall light on the available options there, then you're getting very specific cards that you clearly wanted to draw.
Yeah, you get to build around this guy being in your deck and fueling whatever engine you want to fuel, whether it be removal or whatever it is.
Yep, I like
Um,
it a lot.
so maybe my favorite card in the set is Razor Scale Hunter, which is a 5 cost 4/4. He has Scout, and when you play him, you give an enemy vulnerable. So because he has that Scout, you can like put that vulnerable on a smaller elusive guy, kill it real quick, and then attack with your whole team, including a 4/4, presuming he didn't die in the exchange. I just think that that's such a baller card. It's going to be like a bomb in draft, but I think it's going to have standard applications too.
It should definitely have standard applications, especially for any of the smaller champions, right? So like it was always a big pain in the butt to kill like Lucians because they weren't going to attack. There was no way they were going to block with it. If you played a guy and it had Challenger, you're like okay, um, but you do get the rally set up essentially, or not rally, but you get the refresh your attack token. So if you did it on the actually, I guess it grants the enemy vulnerable, so it keeps it permanently, meaning you don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah, if they deal with the first attack, you get to attack with everybody else and still kill that guy. It's sick.
Yeah, but I meant playing it on. So like I played on your five, I can give your guy vulnerable after you thought it was safe, and then go to my round and open attack and snatch the guy.
Right. Yeah. Very, very strong.
And then even if you kill my guy in a fight with a spell to protect your guy, I get the second attack, and then I can pull him again
Yeah,
with
that's
whoever's left.
literally what I just said. Don't
No, no, no,
shrug.
no. I'm not talking about attacking with razor scale again. I'm talking about attacking with Terra.
Anybody, I know. We know how vulnerable works. Anyone can pull him in. That's what I just said. Listen, you
I'm
don't
not.
have headphones in, so maybe you just can't hear me well.
I can't. Ear muffin.
Mm-hmm.
Ear muffin.
Anything else you want to talk about in these 10?
Yeah, we should be talking about Gangplank.
Oh yeah, champion. My bad. Missed him.
Gangplank. 5 cost
Gangplank.
5/5. Overwhelm. When I'm summoned, summon a powder keg.
And this is the first champ we've seen who has like impact stats for his ability. 5/5 for 5 is on par with the other 5 cost champions, Garen, Vlad. It's bigger than any of the champs that are below him, like at 4 cost, 3 cost, 2 cost. So just like good stats. But yeah, when you've damaged the enemy Nexus 5 rounds in the game, he levels up to 6/6. It's what a lot of the 5 cost 5/5s level up to.
Yep. And the flip side is when I'm summoned and round starts, summon a powder keg. Attack skill. Deal 1 to all enemies and the enemy Nexus.
So if you open attack with him, have like if you flip him on a previous turn, you open the turn, you get a powder keg, and now you attack and you're dealing 2 to all enemies plus the enemy Nexus automatically.
Yep.
And then I love that his spell is 1 cost. It's not partly isn't an amazing spell. Deal 1 to anything. If this kills it, deal 1 to the enemy Nexus. But when you consider that it's cheap, he gives you powder kegs, then it becomes something that's decent. But I love having a 1 cost champ spell. I think that's cool.
Yep. And then for anyone that doesn't know, the powder kegs stack on top of each other. So they'll take up like one slot of your zones for units. But each powder keg after that will stack on top of each other. So like let's say you end up like 3, 4, 5 powder kegs, it's not taking up all of your slots for your units.
Another thing we already talked about, but
Did what? I'm terrible.
yeah,
Man.
you
Sorry.
you really don't listen to anything anyone says.
No. I just
Glad,
don't counter.
glad we're doing this. All right. Anything else from that? So what do you think? I mean, I think Gangplank seems pretty good. I think he works amazingly with Plunder. I think he's like just fine. If Plunder as an ability is strong and these powder kegs end up being strong, then obviously you want to run Gangplank. He's just like the perfect guy for the strategy.
Yeah. I like him in any decks that have multiple cards that will actually deal damage, right? Or skills that do it. If
Yeah,
you're light on those, then he's clearly just not going to be very good there.
and you have to imagine that there's like just a 3 Gangplank, 3 Misfortune deck somewhere out there that's just a very standard Plunder, you know, aggro-y damage deck.
Yeah.
I think if you're like trying to build this right out the gate, like if you want to build a Misfortune deck or a Gangplank deck right out the gate, you want those 6 champs.
Yeah. And I want Piltover and Zon. Because I want like Boom Crews. I want Cask Salesmen to get those pings on their turns. Those just seem really valuable.
Yep,
The only
and
other guy I think that makes sense here is a Slippery Wave Rider. 5 cost 4/4 elusive with the tune.
Yeah, I mean, totally solid.
Like the 4 gets us to what we've talked about several times, which is you want enough health to survive like damage spells and the small guys. He beats every other elusive like in a fight almost. And then he kicks you one back on the attune, which may not be largely relevant right there, but in the subsequent round it could be.
Yeah, and if it's just a matter of whether or not you want a 5 drop in your deck that's only 4/4. Like if you're looking for that, we haven't seen a ton of high cost elusive guys like this being played, but the attune makes him strong, and yeah, I mean it's just a good rate in general. The fact that he dominates over the other elusives is pretty strong.
Yeah, because like the 7 drop 4/2 that pumped all of your dudes +2/+2 for a bit at least. So
I
I don't
played
know.
against him today.
Yeah. Oh, he's scary when he
Yeah,
comes down. You're
he's
like, oh,
really really good. I think I won the. No, I don't think I won the game. I think he beat me. All right. Moving down to the next 10, we get 2 more sea monsters and another champ. I mean, once we're getting into the high cost cards, a lot of these cards end up being good. Why don't we take a look at the champ first? You want to tell us about Not?
so Nautilus was actually one of my favorite champs from League of Legends, and I played him all of the time. Jungler Nautilus, oh yeah.
Nice,
Not so
nice.
much fan here. 7 costs 0/12. Toughness,
Mm-hmm.
fearsome. When I level up, copy tossed allies that cost 4+ into your deck. His level up is when you are deep.
Yeah, so this is insane because you can set this up all game, getting down to just 15 cards in your deck, and then when you play him, if you have those 15 cards or less in your deck, everything that's tossed that costs 4+, all the allied, so creatures like followers, plus champs, right? No, but you can't toss
No
champs, so
chance.
it's just
Just units.
followers. You just units, right? That's the word I'm looking for. They all go back into your deck, so you don't mill yourself as soon as you play a Nautilus. And then when you level him up, he becomes a 13/13 fearsome toughness, and all sea monster allies cost 4 less. So now you're looking at playing ridiculous monsters for 1, 2, 3 mana.
Yeah. The only concern there, right, is that if you're playing a deep base deck, getting all a bunch of sea monsters in your deck could like get you back off of deep.
Yeah, I mean, it will get you off of deep, but they're still like these guys aren't bad stats for what you have,
That's fair.
and you're probably still. I mean, you might not draw the spell cards that would put you back into deep, but you're still getting a pretty good advantage. You're drawing all gas at least,
That's fair. You have a bunch of gas in deck. They're cheap gas. Zero
and
cost 4/4.
and you
Might
have
be
a
a seven
bomb
seven.
3 drop.
Eh, fair enough.
I mean, a bomb. Sorry, a bomb champion on in hand, set like a 13/13 toughness fearsome.
Oh yeah, he's a big boy, real big boy.
And then his spell is Riptide, which I don't think we talked about earlier, but it's 4 costs. It's fast, stun an enemy, and then if you have Nautilus in play, which you would if you're playing Nautilus's Riptide, you get to shuffle the enemy back into their deck, which is huge. You could just take a champ off the table for 4.
Yep. I'm not a big fan of the card regular though, so but at least when you have the copies, it's nice.
Yeah, when you have the extra Nautiluses, I think it's gross.
Yeah.
Um, all right, a lot of these cards in this stack of 10 are strong. I guess we could talk about the sea monsters next. There's a 6 drop 4/4. When you play him, obliterate an enemy with less health than me. So if he comes in and you're deep, he's a 7/7, and you can obliterate anything with 6 or less health.
It's
Otherwise, 3 or less health.
that seems so disgusting from that perspective.
Yeah, it hits a lot of champs.
Oh, the Karma on 5, cool, gone
Yep,
permanently.
just dead.
Goodbye.
And then the other sea monster is Shipwreck Hoarder. It's a 7 drop 7/5. So if it's deep, it's a 10/8. And when I'm summoned, toss 2 and shuffle 2 treasures into your deck. And we should talk about what treasures are.
Yep. So going in, they all cost, from my understanding. Starting with the first one, it's Keelbreaker. 5 cost, slow. If I'm tossed, draw me instead. Deal 5 to all units. So that's just like wow, like it's a crazy large avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Plate Worm Egg. 5 cost, slow. If I'm tossed, draw me instead. Summon 3 vicious plate worms, which are 5/5s, right?
Yep, 5/5s with deep and fearsome, so they can be 8/8s.
Oh my god.
And they're sea monsters.
And they're indeed sea monsters. And the third one is Treasure Trove. If I'm tossed, draw me instead. Create 5 random cards in hand. They cost 0 and are fleet.
Yeah,
Man.
disgusting. And then like so obviously like you don't get penalized for tossing these. It's a boon. If you toss them, you get them in your hand. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy's great. He's super fun. I'll say this, he's super fun. It's just like, RNG is fun. For you.
For
Not for your opponents. Um,
sometimes.
I really like Sheriff Lariat Rose. 6 drop, when I'm summoned, grant all enemies vulnerable. And she's 6/5, so you could just like board wipe if you have stronger guys or if you have pumps or anything.
Hmm.
Or you
So
can just
three.
pick them off one by one as you see fit.
Yep. I actually really like Citrus Courier. 6 cost, 4/5, plunder, heal allies, and your Nexus 3, then rally.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah. Especially if you have any units that like died and dealt the damage to do it on their turn. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'll heal my dudes, heal my Nexus, and I'll watch you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Yep. Or you open attack, kill some guys, take some damage, and then all of a sudden you're healing everyone swinging face.
Yeah.
Gross.
I think Strong Arm might be the first time we've seen this. Strong Arm slow plunder, place a follower and play into your hand. I'm gonna let that ruminate for a bit for you guys.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's straight up stealing one of your opponent's guys into your hand. You can't do a champ, but any other unit you can steal, and you just take it and you can play it if you want, or not. But it's not on the table anymore.
Leave it there for the rest of your life.
Yeah, just hold it in your hand, look at it, stroke it, feel good about it.
You're like, I ain't playing this guy, but you ain't getting him either.
Yeah. Or like, steal their citrus courier. Like,
Or
I
like,
like that guy. I want one.
we're seeing stuff like Solitary Monk with standalones, and you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna get rid of that to my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just not enough answers for that. You can't barrier protect that guy now. It's just like, oh, bye, thank you.
Yep, you need to have something that bounces it or deny, essentially.
Yeah, gotta love it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Um, I don't like Smooth Soloist. It's a 3/4 elusive for 7. Reduce the cost of allies in your hand and deck by 2. That's off a plunder. It's only if you plunder. So um, it's just really late in the game to be playing a 3/4 and a lot of mana for a 3/4 and to be like getting the value of having guys reduce costs. It's just so late for you to be doing that. I don't necessarily see when that's going to be great.
Yeah, I'd agree. The scrap shot I'm not a big fan of either. 7 costs, fast, toss 3, deal 7 to a unit.
No, but I think it's fine if that deck needs like it doesn't seem like Bilge has had a lot of removal. Like we haven't talked about removal at all.
Yeah.
And if this is one of the only ways to kill a guy, 7 is generally enough to do it. Um, Obviously, it gets blown out by things like barrier. That what's that Shadow Isle 7 cost kill a unit? Um,
Oh, Vengeance.
yeah, like Vengeance is like just supremely better, right? Because you can't barrier out of this. This does damage, but you do get the toss, and I think it just might be a necessary include as a 1 or a 2 of in a Bilge deck because they just don't have any removal otherwise, like 0.
Yeah. I guess I feel
Not
like I
0,
wish they
but
tossed
nothing
like
big.
6 or something, or 5. I guess 5 might be a little too low. 6 would probably be
Yeah,
reasonable.
it's overcosted, but like I said, just might be a necessary evil.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And then all we got left is a little 3 stack of dudes.
Yeah. Mind Meld is cool. This round set all allies' power and health to the number of spells you've played this game. So there are definitely some cards like in a Twisted Fate deck where you might just play like 20 spells in a game. Um, yeah, I mean it could be really good. It might be win more, but it's definitely has potential. It's one of those cards that you sort of have to be conscious of and know whether or not you could get blown out by it or if you could blow people out with it.
It'd be like a one of end game spell, right?
Yeah, I think it could just be a one of. It's exactly what I wrote. Like it's just a finisher. It's a 1x finisher.
Riptide Rex is kind of funny though. To plunder, cannon barrage 7 times on random enemies. 8 drop 7/4. And cannon barrage is 0 cost skill. Deal 2 to a unit. If it's dead or gone, deal 1 to the enemy nexus instead.
Yeah.
So you're essentially aiming to do about 14 damage, and for any of these shots that miss, you get one to the Nexus.
Yeah, so
So,
probably like 8 to 14 damage total.
so I guess I'm curious if the opponent has no dudes, is this just 7 to the face?
Yeah, it's just 7 to the face. Because you get to
Interesting.
choose. So like you're dealing the 2, so um, you have to kill all the units before you hit Nexus. So you're like assigning all the damage.
No, it's random enemies, and actually it says enemies that can hit the Nexus. So if they had no dudes, they would take 4
Oh,
damage.
Riptide Rexus are
Oh
random
wait, no,
enemies.
never
Got it.
mind, never mind. It says 2 to a unit.
Yeah.
I was looking at the Riptide Rex. This is random enemies. So like it's weird that if it's trying to pick the Nexus as the enemy, but then it there's no actual unit there.
Right. So I guess that's what it means by gone. So it does one to. I guess like if it chooses the Nexus, then it's one. That's
Yeah,
all.
it's that, and if it chose a guy, like if you pick 3 on a guy that only has like 2 health, then the other 2 would go to Nexus.
Right.
Boo. I was hoping that 14 damage, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're clear. Dead.
Dead. And then I guess like we didn't talk about the Siren or the Dreadway, but every region got like a unit that draws its chant. This is like draw Gangplank, and the Siren from the stack above is draw Misfortune, and they have other abilities. They're pretty expensive, low stat, um, small attack, high defense. So um,
Yeah.
don't seem great, but I guess like double all damage dealt by allies is kind of interesting on the Dreadway. It's just like super expensive.
Indeed. Well, the Siren actually has Scout, so that's like really nice, right?
Yeah, that's true. And when I'm attacking, all your spells and skills grant 1 extra damage, which with coupled with Misfortune, now she's doing like 2 to everybody instead of 1.
Yup.
And if this
All
is in
right.
the Gangplank deck, we talked about obviously the powder kegs that can really get out of hand.
Indeed. But that is the end of Bilgewater for us, guys.
Yeah, we kept it under an hour. That's pretty good.
We tried. We tried.
I tried. You repeated things I said to make it longer.
Always. Trying to get you back on that 2-hour trip.
Yeah, right. No thanks. All right. Well, thanks for watching or listening. And yeah, check us out. We'll be making more content as we cover the rest of the new cards, and then as we start to grind back to master, try and get back our top 9 statuses.
I think I might take the day off and try to hit Master in the one day if I can. But like the
Um,
odds against.
yeah, I think so. Like, if you change that phrase for me, it's like I think I'll get a divorce and try and hit master in one day.
Well,
But yeah, maybe I'll just like stay up all night because like once 9 o'clock hits and my wife goes to bed, I can do whatever. So maybe I'll take a day off and grind all night and sleep all day, and then get a divorce after I wake up.
yeah. Well, like there's also the concern, right? Like, so if you do it day one, will it be the Master players trying to hard grind to Master, and the leftovers are like the people who don't care too much? So then, like, do you get an easier way in after?
Could be.
But being that first person, then you're automatically first Master, and
Right.
you have the rest of your life.
That's true. You get those
Like,
screenshots. Get those screenshots quick. You're like,
yeah.
quick Mobalytics leaderboard update, update, update. I need
Finally,
everyone to
finally.
know.
Yep.
All right. Good talk. And yeah, let's do it again soon.
Deuces.
Later.